Okay, this is going to be a response to my friend Eric from IraqVeteran8888s torture test videos. I finally watched the last one last night. I had to catch up on them. Now Eric made 3 videos. First was an AR upper receiver mounted on an M16 lower receiver. The next was a AK variant converted to full auto, and the next was a Glock 17 with an automatic sear to make it full auto. Now before this conversation goes one step further, I want to clarify 2 things. First and foremost, Eric is a valuable member of our community, and he is a veteran of the global war on terrorism, as his name implies. This is absolutely not an insult or an attack on him. I'm just merely discussing the facts with demonstration videos. Okay, that's all I'm just demonstrating. I'm just talking about the videos. I'm summing them up. Okay, Eric did nothing wrong personally or professionally, and this is not an attack on him in case somebody has that idea in their head. The second thing I want to impress upon you is that Eric and his employer Moss Pawn have special dealer licenses, which gives them the ability to buy post-ban machine guns, which are machine guns made after May 19th, 1986, and to convert firearms to full auto. Now you cannot do this unless you have the licenses that Eric has or the licenses Moss Pawn has. You cannot do this without criminal penalty. And because all these videos have hundreds of thousands of hits, if Eric was breaking the law, he wouldn't have done it on camera. So do not do these demonstrations yourself, because A, like I said, the legality issue with the fully automatic capabilities, and B, this was a dangerous experiment. All 3 of them were. Eric had full body suits on, he had welder's gloves on, he had an actual welding mask on, faceplate, and on at least one occasion he had a paramedic standing behind the camera, but an accident happened. Okay, now Eric's intention was to fire the gun on fully automatic, and rather than stop to pause to load magazines, every magazine was loaded in advance, and he basically fired the gun dry, empty, dropped, and reloaded, and he continued to fire until the gun broke for whatever reason. Now, the AK, first of all, the AR/M16, a hole was blown into the barrel, so the barrel was gone. The second rifle, the AK, the gas was messed up, the barrel was bent, and they literally used a hammer and a tree stump to fix the barrel and fire it modestly. The Glock, they field stripped it, fixed a couple of things, reassembled it, and fired it cautiously after that. But the point was to fire the gun continuously until it broke for whatever reason or another. And the stats are, let me check the stats, I got them on the computer. The AK variant fired 265 rounds before it broke. The AR variant fired 830 rounds before it broke. And the Glock fired 1,272 rounds before it broke. Okay, and that's pretty good, because if you keep that gun on semi-automatic, shoot it periodically, clean it once a year, demonstrate the proper use of it, it'll last you for decades. But if you're in a shit it's the fan scenario where you're being charged by bayonet wielding maniacs, and that gun is needed to save your life, that's how far you'll go before you're killed eventually. Now, the first technically machine gun was the Gatling gun. It's not a machine gun by today's standards, because today's standards are, if you pull the trigger and 2 bullets come out, that's a machine gun. One trigger pull, firing 2 rounds is a machine gun by today's definition, and the Gatling gun was a hand cranked. Yeah. The first real machine gun that we recognize today was the Maxim, which had a toggle system where 1 round goes in, comes out, next toggle goes down, expels the. It's like a, yeah. Okay. And the toggle system was copied by Maxim's colleague Luger for his pistol. The Luger toggle, yeah. Now, Mr. Browning never saw an actual machine gun. He probably never saw a picture or blueprint of one, and he definitely never saw a YouTube video of one. And Mr. Browning, in maybe the early 1890s, I forget the exact date, used an anvil and a hammer to hammer out a bootleg prototype machine gun. And he put it on a train from the Utah Territory to Colt in Connecticut, and all these college-educated gentlemen were laughing at this 7th grade dropout from the back hills, the boonies, and his piece of shit clump of steel. Genius is always misunderstood, and Mr. Browning was the poster child for that. Mr. Browning fired 1,800 rounds consecutive with his bootleg prototype. That's according to his great-nephew. And you'll see in the video I'm going to post below. Tales of the Gun, the Guns of Browning. And that became the prototype, what we would call today the Colt 1895, which is also called a potato digger, because when you rack the arm, if the gun is set too low, the gun digs a hole. The arm digs a hole into the dirt. So you kill the enemy and dig the foxhole simultaneously. 2 tasks at once. Sometime later, when World War I happened, the 1895 was still in service, but they wanted a newer gun. And Mr. Browning was contracted by the federal government to supply the guns for them. So his son was serving overseas, and Mr. Browning, around 1916, 1917, made a new gun which would be called the 1917 water-cooled 30 caliber machine gun. And the military prescribed a test for Mr. Browning that was absolutely Herculean. And Mr. Browning, as usual, exceeded the test. He fired for 48 minutes, 12 seconds, and he fired 40,000 rounds, and the gun still worked. It didn't break. He only stopped firing because he ran out of ammunition. 40,000 rounds. And I don't know if he cooled the gun off or had a second prototype, but he also demonstrated how to field strip and reassemble the gun blindfolded, which is why the Army and Marine Corps does blindfold tests. Now, the Australian government hates guns. Another video from Barry and Eric, God rest Barry's soul. The Browning 1917 is the reason that the Australians can't speak Japanese. Okay? Battle of Henderson Field, Battle of Bloody Ridge, October the 25th, 1942. Mitchell Page and John Basilone being the greatest Marine that ever lived, earned their medals of honor with those guns. Them and their team had those 1917 models. Okay, and though if their guns broke, that would have been it. So now, you know, Kalashnikov, Stoner, Glock, 3 genius inventors that are praised by all gun owners, including myself and Eric and friends. But I have said time and time again, Mr. Browning is the best. And the model, the bootleg model that will become the 1895, beat all of Eric's test guns. The closest was the Glock, which came 1272. Beat it by almost 500 rounds. The other gun, the 1917, that gun fired 20 times as many rounds as all of Eric's prototypes combined, and the gun still wasn't broken. Okay, I continuously say that his material is the best, and Eric's experiments prove the point that I've been making for years. John Browning was the greatest. Even today, we cannot match him. Now, it's different because Mr. Browning's guns were belt-fed, fully automatic machine guns, and Eric's test subjects were a machine pistol and 2 assault rifles. Yes, assault rifles. Intermediate caliber, handheld, firing fully automatic, they were assault rifles by definition. Different ammunition, 9mm, 7.62 by 39, 5.56 versus 30 caliber, bottom fed magazine versus belt fed, but the concept is still there. He is still the best. And the joke is all 3 of those guns that Eric tested are Browning incarnations, because the AK and the AR use the gas that was invented by Mr. Browning. They have different variations of the gas, different incarnations of it. They're their own rifles. They're geniuses in their own way. But without Mr. Browning, Eric would have been testing nothing. He would have been shooting air. And the Glock is a John Browning design because it has the frame, the slide, the barrel, the recoil, and the recoil spring guide rod. Recoil spring and the recoil spring guide rod. Okay, so Mr. Browning is so good that his invention beat all 3 inventions combined by more than 20,000. They were 20,000 times better. And those guns wouldn't exist without him. The AK-47 was made in 1947 of the Kalashnikov model 1947. The AR-10 was invented in the mid-50s. It was scaled down to the AR-15 in 1956. And the Glock 17 was made in 1986. So that's 21 years. $30 years and 60 years after Mr. Browning's death. He's still beating him. Okay, thank you.